So moving on to the next panelist we have Banana Leaf Zine. Banana Leaf Zine is a space and community for understanding the role we play in building sustainability in systems and becoming more conscious citizens. They have an incredible blog where they share tons of resources, tips, and guides for leading a more sustainable lifestyle. So welcome, guys.
Hi, thank you for having us. I'm just gonna share my screen really quick. Also, I apologize for looking up here. Half the time I have a little double monitor situation going on. So promise I'm looking at you guys.
Also, just so the audience knows, Malik and I are best friends and we lived together for 2 years in college. So. Very excited.
Love you, Sophie. Sorry, 1 second. All right, are you guys able to see it? Awesome. Okay, so hi guys, I'm Malika. I'm so excited to be here, and a huge thank you to Luna Collective and Unpublished for having us. Special shout out to Sophie, who, as she just mentioned, a really, really good friend. So today's topic of the panel was wellness and sustainability. And if you guys got a chance to read the description of this little event, or if not, no worries, I'll just tell you guys anyways. What we really wanted to talk about was living a sustainable lifestyle, or kind of a sustainable lifestyle that's more realistic for you and for your goals and for your lifestyle. A lot of what we see when we talk about sustainability is these kind of big terms of zero waste or veganism, and things that can be really intimidating to hear from the get-go. So we kind of wanted to break that down, explore some of the considerations to think about in sustainable lifestyles, and kind of work together to set some goals for you for how you guys can kind of go about transitioning to a lifestyle that maybe you're hoping to embark on. So to start off, this is kind of what I was talking about, where when we kind of look up sustainability, or with it becoming more trendy, we're often met with a lot of headlines like these that can be really aggressive or sometimes even oversimplified, where a lot of companies or news media outlets now will kind of conflate sustainability with these things, just like simple swaps or products that you have to buy in order to really become more sustainable, when that's not necessarily the case at all. And while these things can be awesome and can be a good addition to have in with other elements of your lifestyle, we kind of want to be careful in really conflating that rhetoric and making this all we presume sustainability is. Oops, sorry, my slides are a little bit finicky. So kind of going back to the basics, a definition of just what sustainability is. It's really just meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And that definition comes from the UN World Commission. And they break that down even further by describing how that is encouraging framing decisions in terms of environmental, social, and human impact for the long term rather than short term gains. And the CDC has a definition that kind of extrapolates that to your individual life by defining it as incorporating sustainability into your lifestyle means becoming aware of your choices in food, products, and energy use, and really focusing on the small steps that you can take at home, at work, and in your community. So really that idea of before you do something, before you purchase something, or kind of go about a certain act within your day, within your lifestyle, considering if this is something that, yes, while it may just be bringing you a positive feeling now, giving you what you need in this moment, thinking about the ramifications of that 10 years from now, 30 years from now, 100 years from now, and things like that, and just being more mindful of all the different areas of your life and the way that those actions can kind of continue and ripple throughout the planet and throughout the future across years to come. But before we go in further into the complexities, I should probably tell you a little bit about us and who I am and what we do and how we kind of all got into this. So Banana Leaf is run by me and my friend Tara, who sadly couldn't be here today. She is kicking ass as an ESG analyst working at a sustainable protein supply chain firm. So she's a little busy doing some work for that right now. But I'm here on the behalf of both of us. And we met in India growing up. We both kind of moved around growing up internationally across different countries and have been friends for over 14 years. And both kind of just bonded over veganism, really. So how I kind of even got into sustainability in the first place was 3 years ago. Sophie probably remembers this, but when I was a sophomore in undergrad, I just was like scrolling through my Instagram and saw an ad for something called Veganuary, which was just like vegan January and trying to go vegan for 30 days. And I had done my undergrad in LA, and I was like, that was the perfect place to try being vegan if I was going to do it. So I was like, why the heck not? Like, it'll be fun. I'll challenge myself. And as I was doing that over the course of the 30 days, I found myself kind of just being more mindful about what I was eating and like looking more into nutrition labels. And as people would start to ask me questions about like, why was I even doing this for 30 days? I was like, I should probably have a better answer for them than just why not. So I started doing some research into like the environmental implications of veganism and the benefits of it. And as I was doing that, I was just kind of so excited by the fact that this little lifestyle change could actually have a positive impact in some way in the world. And it was something that was feasible for me. And I totally understood in that moment that like this diet was something that would not work for everyone because of the way people grew up, cultural reasons. They have to eat meat, they have to eat certain things. And I totally understood that. But I was like, if this is something that was feasible for me, then that's awesome. And I should just keep doing it if I can. And that kind of prompted me to want to dive deeper into other lifestyle changes I could make that I could do that could have a positive impact on the world or the planet. And that's how me and my friend Tara, we kind of started talking about that and we bonded over that. And on the bottom left here, you can see like 3 years ago in one of our birthday messages, we were like, it would be cool if one day we could do a little zine type thing about this topic. And now here we are with Banana Leaf Zine. So we started this to really spark discussions like we're having today, empower and inspire people on their own sustainability journeys, and really just to explore, learn, and grow alongside others from a judgment-free kind of perspective. And so what Banana Leaf is we have an Instagram page and a digital community, as well as a blog as well as a blog website and a digital magazine. We have one out so far, and we're working on a few more, as well as a few more long form projects that will hopefully come out later this year that kind of shift away from what we initially started off as, which was kind of seeking, providing advice on like lifestyle changes and veganism, to exploring some of the more nuances and complexities that are really important to be aware of before diving into sustainable journeys that we feel like a lot of kind of media outlets don't necessarily dive into as deeply. So to start off, we'll kind of talk about some of the more macro level of issues to be aware of before honing into some of the more personal considerations as you embark on your sustainable lifestyle changes. So from a bigger scale, intersectional environmentalism is a super important topic and approach to be aware of while you're really diving deeper into this space. And so the definition here comes from the group Intersectional Environmentalist, and their handles included there. They're definitely a great resource and page to check out and support. But this is defined as advocating for underrepresented communities, particularly Black and Indigenous people of color and low-income citizens, and the environment, and understanding the way in which those two are connected, as these communities are often the first to face and be hit by the hardest, really, the negative consequences of climate change. As they put it, injustices experienced by marginalized groups and the planet are often interconnected. Some of like the big statistics are that like Black communities are 70% more likely to live in counties that are in violation of federal air pollution standards. 86% of Alaskan Native villages are susceptible to flooding and erosion. And for example, after Hurricane Katrina, 80% of people living in flooded areas were non-white, but meanwhile, the white higher income neighborhoods had statistically significantly more access to relief and assistance, despite not being as severely impacted. And that issue also kind of feeds into the way that the sustainability movement can appear to be very whitewashed and westernized. Like a lot of the tropes like it, like even veganism, are kind of sometimes associated with being like a white girl thing, when in actuality, a lot of the hallmarks of it we see come from indigenous or from Eastern cultures and things that they've been doing for centuries. So we thought it was kind of really important to just discuss how one of the lines between cultural appropriation and appreciation in embarking on your sustainability journey is failing to acknowledge where a practice comes from or misattributing its origin. So like before applauding a big corporation for a seemingly innovative, sustainable product or vegan dish, remember to consider how it may have stemmed from another culture or country's roots, and really just doing more research into that beforehand. And that kind of transitions into the idea of individual versus collective action. And that's definitely kind of a nuanced debate of the back and forth of, should I do anything? Like if that won't really have an impact, when it's these big companies who kind of make the biggest, are causing the biggest issues like for the planet in terms of the world's carbon footprint and carbon emissions. But at the same time, like if I'm not doing anything, am I contributing to the problem? So it's really kind of a cyclical nature between the two. And it's really important to remember that balance is key. Individual sustainable changes are important and definitely help in making us more mindful and more conscious of what's going on in the world, what's going on with carbon emissions and different companies' carbon footprints. But the onus should not be on the individual, but rather on large bodies like the government and corporations that contribute the most to the issues. But it's clear that those bodies do still respond to individual action via collective demand. And so, and us shifting the attitude about the environment, we can see like the boom in things like oat milk, like they listen, they hear us when we say like, we don't want regular milk anymore, which is why the two kind of really work together cyclically, and work in both of these areas of collective and individual action is so important to pursue. But in pursuing individual action, this kind of brings us to the next point. It's really important to be aware of traps, like feeling like you have to purchase certain products or things to be more sustainable. For one, like using what you have and going back to like the 3 R's, like recycling, reusing, reducing, that we probably learned about in grade school long before trendified sustainability topics. That's always the best option. But also greenwashing is just unfortunately so prevalent. And with the way the advertising industry works, it really just makes us feel like we need it and we need these things to be a better person or to be sustainable. So it's just so important to consider the way in which brands could be conveying a false impression of these products, or even providing misleading information about how they're more environmentally sound, when really maybe only 2% of the company's clothing line comes from a sustainable resources, and they just kind of use that in order to hide the rest. And so common examples of this just include like flashy sustainable buzzwords that over exaggerate the minimal amount that they're doing that's sustainable, which is why when you're looking to buy something new, taking a second to do research into the brand, or a quick Ecosia, which is a carbon negative alternative to Google, quick plug for them, search on small or sustainable business alternatives is always awesome to consider. And so while all of those things are just definitely like things to keep in mind, it's also like it's definitely a lot, and it doesn't need to feel like some kind of mental checklist, but should just be things to be aware of. There's beauty and benefits in doing whatever you can to be a bit more sustainable, and just doing your best to make a change where you can, when you can, and how you can, which is something that, like, if you follow along with us, you'll see we keep saying and are just super passionate about advocating for, and hopefully kind of just offering that fresh perspective within the sustainable lifestyle discourse, which leads us to your own sustainable lifestyle goals and points of consideration. And so not one thing will work for everyone. Not one thing's going to be feasible for everyone. Veganism might not work for everyone. Shampoo or soap bars might not work for everyone. I know soap bars don't work for my hair. I have to use, or shampoo bars, I still have to use bottle shampoos, and sometimes I'll feel kind of bad about it, but it doesn't work for me. And so it's just important to really consider things for your lifestyle, things that fit into your budget, things that maybe you live with a partner or family member who can't accommodate to what you were hoping to kind of transition into. And that's totally fair and okay. And I think instead of feeling guilty, the second point of some or nothing instead of all or nothing is really just so important to like just remind yourself about, that just as long as you're doing what you can, you're already doing more than what you were doing before. And I think it's just important to feel proud about the small changes that you've made. And yeah, it's kind of keeping you going with the changes you're making is to really find your fuel and find a sustainable motivation for making these changes. If you just like see a product and think it looks cool and want to just like buy it, that might not keep you down that line of sustainability and making these changes as you continue. But for me, it's just honestly the excitement of it and trying new things that I know are bringing less harm to the environment, which I'm super passionate about. And I feel like this passion for wanting to pursue a more sustainable lifestyle was really deepened the more time I spent in nature. and connecting to things outside and realizing and understanding the cause that I was caring about and trying to make a difference towards. So for you, it can really be anything from aesthetics to the environment to your health to money. Just any kind of motivation for yourself. It's important to kind of like reflect and find what works for you, which is exactly what we'll do right now. We'll just do a little bit of reflection and goal setting together. So if everyone wants to maybe just take like 5 minutes, grab a little notebook or on your laptop, jot down some of your thoughts and answers to these questions. We can consider like what's motivating you to try to pursue more sustainable habits. Something that can kind of help you is if you want to evaluate what your ecological footprint is. This website is super user friendly and you can find out in a couple minutes. And you can kind of consider from there what parts of your footprint are in your control versus what's not. And out of what's in your control, which of those are feasible areas in which you can make change, and what changes do you want to make in those areas. And something that's really important to remember in these goals is just start small. If like you eat meat every day, don't say you're gonna go vegan. Like do things specific, do things relevant to you in your life, and do things feasible for you. But if you're not really sure where to start, you can kind of look at these goals on the side of the screen here. These were created by the UN General Assembly to help bridge the gap between the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and Sustainable Lifestyles movement to inspire individuals to participate in the conversation and act on sustainable development goals. So you can kind of see if within them, if you can like break down one of the bigger goals that they offer and apply them to your life and make it more relevant to your life. I'll stop talking for a few minutes and give you guys a chance to reflect and goal set. Okay, cool. So just for kind of time purposes, I'll take a little pause on this for now, but definitely like please keep reflecting and goal setting after this. But I wanted to see if anyone wanted to potentially share any of the goals they set or the reflections, things they thought about when they were answering these questions.
I can start. I'm trying to focus on more using less single use products. I don't use a lot of that, but it's as simple as like when you go to the grocery store and you buy strawberries and that comes in a plastic container, because I feel like I'm good with a lot of areas, but definitely packaging is been really hard for me to get better with. So that's something I'm really trying to work on and reflected about.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like definitely like groceries is such a big one. And I think like also like you were mentioning, choosing a specific like product or just instance in your life when you use it is so important. I think to help really like realize how can you address that specific like thing as opposed to just a kind of general like single usage, but thinking, okay, instead of buying strawberries like in these boxes at the supermarket, maybe at the farmer's market, I can go and like get those little like containers and reuse that container and kind of really thinking about it in that narrow down way is definitely like such an awesome just kind of approach to take.
Definitely. It looks like we also got some in the chat. Yeah, simply buying less and being honest with myself on what I actually need and using everything before you already have before buying new things. Doing my research on the brand I buy from and shop at more sustainable, small Black per person of color businesses. These are all really great. Yeah.
You're awesome. I love these. And thank you guys for sharing. Just a little quote I like, just recording your dreams and goals on paper. You set in motion the process of becoming the person you most want to be. You're putting your future and with these sustainability goals, other people's futures and the planet's future in good hands and your own. And so for going forward from goal setting, just kind of accountability, having a little buddy system, making sure to tell people your goals and checking in with them, being honest with yourself, being honest with your friends about it. If you slip up, that's totally okay. Making sure to forgive yourself. And like I kind of mentioned earlier, remember that once like you start acting on a goal, it's really easy to be hard on yourself when you mess up. But remember that by even like acting on that goal 80% of the time or 60% of the time, you're doing it more than you were before. And you're already doing more positive things for yourself and for your life. And kind of extending beyond individual action, maybe consider setting aside a couple of like hours a month to research and email brands and companies you care about and push for sustainable practices for them, feeding into that kind of cyclical nature between individual and collective action that we had mentioned earlier. And before I wrap up, just a quick plug. You can follow us on Instagram at Banana Leaf Zine. Here's a little preview into our page, or read some of our articles on our blog at bananaleafzine.com/blog. This past summer, we released our first zine, which kind of focused, which is the first in a series of 3, Today, Transition, Tomorrow. This one really focused on the issues that COVID really exposed in terms of the lack of sustainability in our systems, both in terms of environmentalism and just the way our systems operate right now. We think COVID really just shed a light on the fragility of them and things that were exposed about them. Transition, the next issue, will kind of focus on ways to bridge that gap and make these systems more sustainable, while tomorrow, the final one in the series, will focus on a more optimistic, positive light and what our future can look like if we start to make these changes in fixing our systems. And yeah, just thank you guys so much for listening and for sharing in the chat or out loud. And one of our mottos is to just explore, learn, and grow. So we're super excited to make this year one of exploration, growth, and connecting with both ourselves, the world around us, and hopefully connecting with each other. Feel free to email us or DM us with any questions, or if you want any help or advice or accountability on your sustainability goals, we got you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we have a couple questions we wanted to ask you, but like we said earlier, if anybody else has any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat, or you can just raise your hand. So coming from us, what has been the easiest eco-friendly habit you've picked up?
Ooh, let's see. I feel like a lot of just like little products, I guess, that replaced a lot of my like single use products beforehand. I think kind of like Sophie and I were talking about earlier when we were saying like looking at one product at a time. For example, just like tote bags at the grocery stores or metal straws like in cups and going out. In undergrad, like Sophie also probably remembers, I had a little reusable solo cup my senior year that I got. So I think things like that, they're just kind of like cute and fun to have, help kind of make that transition a lot easier, because I was excited about using these products, excited to show them to people. They kind of felt like, you know, they were part of like your brand, part of you being a little cool and quirky by having these things. So I think things like that were fun and help make that easier.
That's great. We also have a question in the chat. How do you deal with consumer guilt, for example, when there are products or services you know you can't avoid?
That's definitely super hard. And eco guilt is like definitely such a big thing. I feel like I still deal with it. I'm like trying to navigate. I think it's just, again, kind of reminding yourself that it's important to do what you can where you can. So, in the areas of my life where I can be more eco conscious, I do my best too. But when there's certain things that I can't avoid, instead of trying to like be hard on myself about it, understanding that this time in my life, like like I can't be approaching it the way I want to, but kind of making a plan for, okay, in the future, maybe when I'm like living in my own house and like living fully independently, I'll be able to do this because I won't be relying on these people for this product, and things like that. Like, for example, right now, when I'm like in an apartment building, or the way like our garbage system works, they have like a very bad recycling system. So I kind of have to use still a lot of just like non-recyclable friendly things and I want to throw it out with them. And that can be kind of hard. But yeah, just understanding and I don't know, being easy on yourself, remembering that you're doing what you can. And yeah.
That's great. We also have another question, just and you kind of touched on, individualism versus collectivism and that whole kind of conversation. What's kind of your go-to response when someone tells you that your efforts make no no difference, when they look down on the individualism effort?
Definitely. I think it's definitely something that can be thrown around a lot, especially with things like veganism and being vegan. I think normally what I say to that is, well, it's not doing any harm. It can only be helping. So why not? Like the most you can get out of it is a positive impact, and that positive impact, it won't be causing anyone or anything any harm by doing it. Whereas with the alternatives, there are definitely ways that you can identify the harm. So the harm those things could be causing.
Awesome. So another one is what positive outcomes, sorry, my dog is barking. What positive outcomes do you hope quarantine can have on people and their relationships with sustainability?
I think definitely being inside has helped people be so much more mindful and help people realize that they really don't need a lot of things for their everyday life. Like we really, for almost a year now, most people have kind of just been inside and using the same things that they've been using and not needing to constantly replenish their stocks of things. And I think it just helps people realize that we're not as dependent as we thought we were on certain products or certain, yeah, just parts of our lifestyle.
Nice. And I'm not sure if you were here for the last session. We kind of touched on this in the end, but obviously quarantine has brought a lot of unsustainable practices for a lot of people. But what positive outcomes do you hope that this maybe could have on people's relationship with being eco-friendly and sustainability?
Yeah, I think just like kind of, I think it also allows people to reflect a lot more, just like on their relationship with the planet, with their habits and things like that. And I know at first I'm sure there's kind of like a lot of impulse quarantine buying, like retail therapy, things like that. But I think we've seen like a downward spike now in that kind of trend. I think people are starting to realize and just be comfortable with what they have and enjoying the things they have. And yeah.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I guess kind of moving forward, I know you touched about kind of some things moving forward, but what are you most excited for this year and Banana Leaf Scene?
I'm excited about a few kind of like projects that we have in the works. Like late last year, we both weren't really able to do a lot of work on like Banana Leaf as a whole. Just as I was mentioning, like Tara started a new job. I started like a new program at school. So it was kind of difficult to like invest like time and energy into it. But I think we finally kind of like got some like ideas set out and in the works. Something we're working on that's probably a while away from coming is kind of like an intersectional environmentalist project, working with like activists and creating like an anthology on thoughts speaking to these kinds of questions of intersectional environmentalism and the nuances of the sustainability movement that are kind of swept under the rug. So hopefully that'll come out at some point in the near future, but stay tuned.
Okay, cool. Well, I think unless anyone has any other questions, let us know. Otherwise, Rebecca, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, thank you so much for hopping on and joining the panel and answering all of our questions along with doing your own presentation. I personally learned a lot, and that definitely helped me because I'm trying to be more sustainable and eco-friendly and everything like that. But just thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Awesome.
Have a
Well,
good rest of your day.
thank you again. And we're gonna wrap this session up.